When she walked into the five-star restaurant wearing torn shoes and an old, faded sweater, every head turned in disbelief. The waiters whispered, guests sneered, and even the pianist paused mid-tune. But the man sitting in the corner, the young, impossibly rich CEO everyone admired, simply smiled. Because while the world saw a beggar, he saw the most beautiful soul he'd ever encountered. And that night changed both their lives forever. The rain was falling softly that evening, painting silver streaks on the city streets. The lights from the tall buildings shimmered on the wet pavement, and the air smelled of earth and perfume, the kind that belonged to expensive cars and expensive lives. Alina stood on the other side of the street, shivering slightly beneath her thin coat, clutching a small umbrella that had lost one of its ribs. She looked across the road at Le Mirage, the most elegant restaurant in the city. It was a place where people came to make business deals, celebrate anniversaries, and show off success. Its entrance gleamed with golden lights, its glass doors revealing men in suits and women in sparkling dresses. And then there was her. Hair damp from the rain, jeans that had faded into dull gray, and shoes so worn that the soles threatened to part ways any moment. She almost laughed at herself. What am I doing here? Her best friend, Sarah, had insisted she go on this blind date. You've spent too long hiding behind work and worries, Sarah had said, handing her the small piece of paper with the man's name, Alexander Reed. Just one dinner. Who knows? Maybe he'll surprise you. Alina had protested, of course. Sarah, I clean offices for a living. He probably owns them. Then you'll have something in common, Sarah had replied with a wink. But now, standing there, her reflection in the glass told her the truth. She didn't belong. Not in that world. Not tonight. Not ever. She turned to leave, but then she remembered her father's words, the words he used to tell her before life became a storm of unpaid bills and sleepless nights. Don't ever walk away just because you feel small. The world isn't as big as it pretends to be. So she took a deep breath and walked in. The moment she stepped inside, silence rippled through the restaurant. Forks paused mid-air, and conversations faded into murmurs. The hostess, dressed in sleek black, looked her up and down before forcing a polite smile. Good evening, miss. May I help you? Alina swallowed. I have a reservation. Table for two, under the name Reed. The hostess blinked, clearly caught off guard. Reed, she repeated, glancing toward the back where the most exclusive tables were. Are you sure? Yes, Alina said softly, clutching her small purse. The hostess opened her mouth, likely to suggest that Alina might have the wrong place, but before she could, a voice came from behind her. It's all right. She's with me. Every head turned as Alexander Reed rose from his seat. Tall, impeccably dressed, his dark hair slightly tousled, and eyes sharp yet kind, he was the picture of control and success. The kind of man whose presence filled a room without needing to speak. Yet now, his gaze softened as it fell on her. Alina, he asked gently, walking toward her. Her heart stuttered. Yes, I'm sorry if I'm. He smiled, stopping her mid-sentence. You're right on time. The hostess stepped aside, flustered, as he pulled out a chair for Alina himself. People whispered, disbelief written on every face. But Alexander didn't care. Alina sat, feeling completely out of place. The table was set with crystal glasses and silver cutlery that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She couldn't even pronounce half the things on the menu. He noticed her nervous hands and smiled softly. You're uncomfortable. She looked down. A little. I didn't know it would be this kind of place. Pretentious? He asked with a raised brow. Yes, I agree. I only come here because my assistant insists it's good for appearances. That made her laugh quietly, and for the first time that evening, her shoulders relaxed a little. He leaned back, watching her. So, tell me, Alina, what do you do when you're not saving the world from fancy restaurants? She hesitated. You don't really want to know. Try me, he said, his tone sincere. She took a breath. I clean offices. Late at night. Most people don't even notice me, unless I forget to empty the trash. He didn't flinch or pretend to be polite. Instead, he said, that's honest work. My company would fall apart without people like you. Most wouldn't admit it, but it's true. His words caught her off guard. Usually, when she told people about her job, they'd nod with forced politeness or change the subject. But he sounded like he actually meant it. "Why are you being so kind?" she asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "Because I know what it's like to be invisible. To walk into a room full of people who only see what you have, not who you are." There was something in his eyes, something raw, almost lonely. They began to talk, slowly at first. About simple things, books, street food, childhood dreams. Every answer she gave seemed to draw him closer, not because of her words, but because of her sincerity. She spoke of how she wanted to finish her degree someday, how she used to draw when she had time, how she loved rain because it made the city seem honest. He told her about how he missed cooking for himself, how board meetings drained him, how sometimes he felt like everyone admired him but no one knew him. It was strange, how two people from opposite worlds could find such comfort in conversation. The waiters hovered nearby, puzzled. No expensive wine was ordered. No grand gestures, just laughter and quiet understanding. When the bill came, Alina instinctively reached for her old wallet. "Please, let me at least pay for my meal," she said quickly. He stopped her gently. "Dinner's on me." Then, after a pause, his lips curved. "But coffee's yours next time." She blinked. "Next time?" "Yes," he said simply. "You didn't think this was just a one-time meeting, did you?" Her heart fluttered. "You might regret it," she said, smiling shyly. "People will talk. Let them," he said. "They always do. I stopped listening years ago." He walked her out, holding an umbrella above her head though the rain had turned to mist. They reached the bus stop, and she felt an ache she couldn't explain. "I can take you home," he offered. She shook her head. "The bus is fine. I'm used to it." He nodded but didn't step away. The rain glistened in his hair, his suit slightly damp, but he didn't seem to notice. Before she boarded, she turned back. "You don't know me, Alexander. I'm not someone who belongs in your kind of life." He met her gaze steadily. "Then maybe my life needs someone like you." Her throat tightened. She didn't answer, just gave a small nod before stepping onto the bus. Through the window, she saw him still standing there, motionless, watching her disappear into the night. And as the city lights blurred behind the rain-soaked glass, Alina felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a spark of hope. She didn't know if he meant it, or if their worlds could ever meet again. But for that single evening, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't the girl people pitied or ignored. For one night, someone had looked at her, truly looked, and seen her worth. And somewhere in the golden glow of Le Mirage, a powerful man who had everything sat alone. Smiling for no reason at all. Because in that one encounter, he'd seen something money could never buy, a heart that was real. He searched for her in every street, every memory, every quiet moment of his days. The girl who'd walked into his world wearing torn shoes had left a mark no luxury could erase. And just when he thought he'd lost her for good, fate brought them face to face again, in the most unexpected place, forcing them both to choose between pride and love. Days turned into weeks, but for Alexander Reed, the memory of that rainy night refused to fade. Every board meeting felt longer, every dinner emptier. He found himself distracted, not by stock prices or contracts, but by the sound of her laughter echoing faintly in his mind. Alina had become an ache beneath his calm exterior. He would pass by the cafe they'd joked about visiting next time, hoping she'd appear. He told himself to move on, to be rational, but love, he realized, isn't rational. He sent her a message once, "Coffee's still waiting." But there was no reply. Alina, on the other hand, had tried to forget him too. She threw herself into work, scrubbing floors at dawn, studying by night. The memory of his kindness both warmed and hurt her. He belongs in a world of chandeliers, she told herself. I belong beneath them, cleaning the glass. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about his eyes, how they'd seen her as more than her circumstances. That frightened her. She had built walls to survive, and Alexander's presence had quietly torn them down. One afternoon, while cleaning an office tower, Alina heard murmurs from the executives gathered for a meeting. Their voices carried through the hall, sharp, formal, important. She wiped the last table and turned to leave when a familiar voice froze her in place. "Let's make sure the proposal aligns with our long-term ethics policy," said a deep, steady tone she would recognize anywhere. Her heart thudded painfully. Alexander. She turned slowly, and there he was, standing at the head of the conference table, tall and composed in his navy suit, speaking with authority. He looked like a man born for command, but his eyes, when they briefly swept across the room, held the same quiet sadness she remembered. Panic gripped her. She ducked into the janitor's closet, pressing her hand against her chest, willing her heart to slow. But fate wasn't done playing its part. As she reached for her cleaning cart, the mop bucket tipped, spilling water across the hallway. The noise drew attention, and then the door opened. Alina. His voice was low, astonished. She froze, staring at him. Time collapsed between them. You shouldn't be here, she stammered, shame rushing through her. I mean, this is just my job. He stepped closer. So what? I've been looking for you everywhere. Why? Her voice broke. You have everything. Money, respect, your own world. Why look for someone like me? He hesitated, then said softly, because none of that means anything without you. She shook her head, tears forming. Don't say that. You'll regret it later. People will talk. They'll say you've lost your mind, falling for a cleaner. Let them talk, he said firmly. They've talked about me my whole life, and it's never once made me happy. She turned away, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. You don't understand, Alexander. You'll lose everything you've built if you let someone like me into your world. He smiled faintly, sadness flickering in his eyes. Then maybe what I built isn't worth keeping. But before he could say more, someone called his name from the boardroom. Alina used the moment to slip past him, disappearing down the hallway, leaving behind a puddle of water and a man who finally understood what loss truly felt like. The days after that were torture. She stopped coming to that building, changing shifts, avoiding the areas he might appear. Meanwhile, Alexander buried himself in work, but his focus was gone. His board began to notice. His assistant whispered about how distracted he seemed, how different. Then came the breaking news. Alexander Reed to announce engagement to socialite Catherine Hale, merging two of the biggest corporate empires in the city. Alina saw the headline while mopping the floors of a small cafe. Her heart felt like it had been wrung dry. She should have been happy for him. He was moving on, doing what was expected of him. But that night, she cried quietly into her pillow, the same way she had cried the night her mother left and her world first began to shrink. She promised herself she'd forget him this time. But life had other plans. A month later, during a charity gala broadcast live on television, Alexander collapsed mid-speech. The microphone clattered, chaos erupted, and cameras caught him clutching his chest before he fell. Alina saw it happen on the cafe TV. The cup she was washing slipped from her hands and shattered. Hours later, she was standing outside St. Andrew's Hospital, rain drenching her once again. She didn't know how she got there, only that her legs had carried her as if her heart had decided for her. When she reached the nurse's desk, the woman asked, "Are you family?" Alina hesitated, trembling. "No, but please," he asked for me. "His name is Alexander Reed." The nurse's expression softened. "Room 304. He's been asking for someone named Alina since he woke up." Her chest tightened. She ran down the hall, nearly slipping on the wet floor. When she entered the room, the sight made her stop. Alexander, pale against the white sheets, an oxygen line tracing his face, but those eyes, those same eyes found her instantly. "I told them," he whispered with a weak smile, "I wouldn't open my eyes until you came." Her tears fell freely. "Why would you do that?" "Because I couldn't stand another day pretending I don't need you," he said softly. "I tried to live without you, Alina. I collapsed from everything except my heart. That's still yours." She sat beside him, her fingers trembling as they touched his hand. "You can't say things like that. You're engaged." "Not anymore," he interrupted. "It was a deal, a merger. But what I felt for her was business. What I feel for you, that's life." Her breath caught. "You don't even know what my life is like." "I don't need to," he said, eyes glistening. "I only know that when I'm with you, I finally feel human." Silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of rain against the window. She had spent her life believing she wasn't enough. But here was a man who had everything, saying she was more than enough. She squeezed his hand. Alexander, if I say yes to you, the world won't be kind. He smiled faintly. Then we'll build our own world. Her tears turned to laughter, quiet and full of disbelief. You're impossible, only because you make me that way, he said, voice barely above a whisper. So, marry me, Alina. Not because of who I am, but because of what you make me want to be. She covered her mouth, her heart pounding so fast it hurt. She wanted to say no, to protect him, but her soul had already whispered yes. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. Only if the wedding's small, she said softly. No chandeliers, no crowds, just us. His weak laugh turned into the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Months later, they married in a quiet garden beneath a sky washed clean by rain. No reporters, no headlines, just the sound of wind through flowers, and two hearts that had found their way home. As they danced barefoot in the wet grass, he whispered against her ear, "You walked into my life dressed like a beggar, Alina, but you've given me a wealth no one else ever could." She smiled through tears, holding him close. "And you," she whispered back, "taught me that even broken things can be loved, if someone's brave enough to see their beauty." The rain fell again that night, not to drown them, but to bless them. And as they held each other beneath it, the world finally disappeared, leaving behind only truth, only peace, and the kind of love that needed no witnesses. Love doesn't care about appearances or titles. It recognizes kindness, resilience, and truth, the kind of beauty that wealth can't buy and time can't erase. Sometimes the richest hearts are hidden beneath the humblest clothes, waiting only for someone brave enough to see them.